Sadguru Sainath Maharaj ki Jai.
Aum Sairam to all the Sai Bandhus. By the immense grace of Shri Sainath Maharaj, let us all now heed to the biography of great apostle of Shri Sai Baba, Pujyashri Narasimha Swamiji, narrated in the book As the Flower Sheds Its Fragrance by DR.G.R. Vijayakumar. Chapter 9, from 1932 to March 1934. A keen lover of poetry, Narasimha Swamiji memorized verses from the immortal works of poet saints of Maharashtra like Jnaneshwar, Namdev, Eknath, Tukaram, and Samarth Ramdas. He moved extensively around Konkan, Pune, and Nasik districts and learnt by heart the philosophical poems of great saints of the region like Mansur Mastana, Nipat Niranjan, Amrita Rai, Janardhan Swami, Manpuri, and others. During all his wanderings, he travelled mostly on foot and acquired wide experience of the world at large. He took mental notes of whatever he saw and acquired knowledge of all the things that came his way. Thus, when he got an opportunity, he learnt yogic postures and developed a strong and healthy body. Similarly, he gained detailed knowledge of Ayurveda and medicinal herbs and treated many an ailing person. He also learnt the intricacies of the culinary art. The difficulties Narasimha Swamiji had to face in his quest were many and varied. He used to walk along railway lines and sleep under bridges at night. He would never ask anyone for food or shelter, and at times he had to go without food. He would only accept whatever was offered to him. Once, being oppressed by hunger, he softened mud with water, filtered it through a piece of cloth, and ate it. Narasimha Swamiji passed severe winter nights with only a towel round his waist. At night, he would go to a tomb in the burial ground nearby, cover himself with the sheet spread on the tomb, and replace it in the morning. Swamiji has thus lived in the open, has drunk water from flowing rivers, and has braved biting cold, oppressive heat, and pouring rain with his almost naked body. As a result, he suffered from malaria and chronic dysentery. Narasimha Swamiji came in contact with a variety of men, from saints to rogues, but learnt something useful from each of them. Mostly, he took shelter either in monasteries or temples. On one or two occasions, police harassed him. Despite the hardships and trials that he had chosen to undergo, his restlessness of spirit remained so strong that he wandered all over Maharashtra. Many times he experienced the invisible hand of Providence guiding and protecting him. On one occasion, Swamiji was sitting at the Sholapur railway station. He had no food for 3 days. A sadhu came and sat near him. He ordered a plate of puri bhaji, out of which he gave only one puri with a little bhaji to Narasimha Swamiji. He gulped it, drank some water, and fell asleep, saying to himself, "God has been kind, but rather thrifty. When he woke up, the sadhu was still there. Immediately, he gave the remaining plate of puri bhaji, saying, "If one has fasted for 3 days, one should not eat too much at all at once." Swamiji wondered how he knew that, but before he could ask him, the sadhu vanished. At Pune, in the cantonment area, he visited the dargah of famous Afghan saint Hazrat Babajan. He had heard about this woman saint, and even though he developed a fascination for that place, Hazrat Babajan did not make any impact on him. At Vajreshwari, Swami Muktananda, an old companion of Narasimha Swamiji at Siddharudha Ashram, Hubli, was staying in a boothkhana near Chalisgaon, and both of them took part in a Nama Sankirtan for a day. The story of Narasimha Swamiji meeting Zibruna, an Avadut of Jalgaon, is interesting. Narasimha Swamiji had heard that a great saint named Zibruna, and it is worth having his darshan. Swamiji was disappointed to see him sitting on a heap of refuse. His body was free from any trace of dust, dirt, or repulsive odor. Instead, a pleasant fragrance emanated from his body. Swamiji was deeply fascinated by the saint's spiritual presence. When Narasimha Swamiji bowed down to him, Zibruna curtly dismissed him, saying, "I am not your guru." In those days, Narasimha Swamiji used to have severe headaches. He mentioned it to Zibruna. The saint made Swamiji sit on his lap, licked his head, and blessed him by saying, "Your fame will reach the highest heaven." Swamiji was at once cured of his headaches. Swamiji practiced tapasya in a dense forest near the Vajreshwari temple. Wild animals infested the place, and there were occasions when tigers hovered round the place when he sat in meditation. Narasimha Swamiji chose to lead an austere life, to undergo privation, and to remain in isolation. In his effort to keep as far away as possible from the din and bustle of life, he even passed days on hilltops so that he could get nearer and nearer to the one he was seeking. Near Elo, he lived with a Ramdasi sadhu to learn the Tulsi Ramayan, the Ramcharit Manas from him. He also looked after the cows owned by the sadhu. Many a time, Narasimha Swamiji lived only on buttermilk, milk, or lemon juice for months together. Yet, with all the rigors of a wandering life, restlessness of spirit often got the better of him. He could hardly even remain in one place for long. The indirect knowledge of God acquired through the scriptures did not satisfy him. He longed for direct contact. He was still in search of the absolute reality. He did not mind which way he went over the hills, down the dales, or by the riverside, through the dense forest or the plains. In fact, anywhere, it hardly made any difference to him. He was in quest of God. He knew deep within his heart that the way could only be found from those who have already trodden the path and reached the goal. In other words, Narasimha Swamiji was in search of a guru. Wherever he went, He was anxious to know of saints and would go to them. He saw and met many sadhus, tapasvins in caves and siddhas sitting on garbage heaps, but he found none who would waken his soul to the tune of the infinite, or rather, none of them was acceptable to his beyond spirit. He was like a fish eternally thirsty, or a bird always wanting to soar higher and still higher over the mountains, clouds, and skies to reach that supreme state of ever conscious and all pervading spirit. He wanted to become one with him. Dear Sai Bandhus, we shall now close the 8th episode of the biography of Pujyashri Narasimha Swamiji, and the rest will be continued in the next chapter. Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all. Aum Sairam.